It is my pleasure to welcome you all here today on Transport Day at COP. Collaborating and bringing our efforts and initiatives together, we would like to create a center of gravity to make green freight more simpler, more easy to access and procure for many companies. And that's why we say the Smart Freight Center, BSR and World Economic Forum is already a very good sign to join forces under this alliance and bring this into success. So we want to unite both freight buyers and freight decarbonization initiatives to shift to net zero across all modes of transport. So we're going to do this by having three work streams, focusing on three areas. First of all, we want to streamline scalable solutions. Secondly, we want to catalyze concrete collaboration. And thirdly, we would like to demonstrate tangible progress. So the question is how we are going to do this, of course. Is first of all, we will have a work stream on scaling solutions with an initiatives map, with solutions pathway tool, and also with the net zero procurement principles support. And this all to make sure that there is a clarity and access to streamlined and impactful actions for all companies. Then the second one is to catalyze concrete collaboration. And here we are going to bring in a collaborative platform, in a so-called marketplace, if you like, companies and existing initiatives as well. So again, this is a very important element of the alliance, to bringing in existing initiatives to streamline basically further companies towards those existing initiatives. Then that's impact, of course, to accelerate the impact through collaboration. And the third one is to establish a very clear system to track freight emissions, both for the companies and both for the initiatives, the collaborations which are out there, just to make sure that we can focus really for the most impactful interventions. And that's all towards that net zero target, and of course to keep the 1.5 degrees scenarios target.
But we're also seeing this proliferation of different activities in this space, and are hearing from our partners that they need clarity, they need standardization, they need certainty of these different pieces all moving in the same direction. And so for us as the World Economic Forum and the partners that we represent, in SFBA, it makes absolute sense to be making sure that there's a space where all of those things can align, that there is a resource that becomes something that helps all of those all go in the same direction. And so the collaboration effort is certainly where we see some of the greatest value to be created through SFBA, and delighted to collaborate on that. You may have seen just last week we launched the First Movers Coalition, so a version of a buyers club. And there's a Sustainable Aviation Buyers Club as well. So there's a number of these initiatives, and we're certainly wanting to make sure that through this effort we can demonstrate where there's real progress, we can amplify that, and of course have a space where if there's those folks who aren't necessarily at the forefront of this, have an opportunity to come and learn from those who are, and can collaborate in this endeavor.
And the SFBA is one of the initiatives that intends to take implementation to scale, to begin to close that gap. Few companies have the bandwidth to focus on freight emissions in categories 4 and 9 of their Scope 3 footprint. Even fewer have bandwidth to sort through all of the different solutions. And so that's why it's really important that one of the planks of the SFBA is on solutions. Companies with exceptionally limited bandwidth need to be able to sort through them and to pick. And that is not the dozen or so that are currently piloting solutions. We are talking about the hundreds that need to scale those solutions. Esther has mentioned the SFBA's sort of various ways that we'll tackle this particular problem. Already, I think there is a solution pathway tool that will be refined. It will help companies pick the solutions that are best suited to them. We've been working, all of our organizations have been working on procurement practices. And so by sort of aligning them and by scaling and spreading their application, that too will help solutions to come into play. Our aim, obviously, is to scale these up and to feed this collective goal of 100 million tons. And I want to note, this 100 million tons, it's not 100 million avoided tons. This is 100 million tons of reductions tracked multimodally in freight by 2030. That is the collective ambition of this particular initiative. And really the highest value will be to bring together all of the action initiatives, the ones that will actually deliver solutions or scaled solutions towards this 100 million ton goal. These can be from organizations, like they can be the Sustainable Air Freight Buyers Alliance, for example, and they can also be from companies, right? I mean, it can be about Maersk's new 8 green methanol ships. They can come from companies. They don't have to just come from organizations. The SFBA has now gone through an inception period. And during this period, we've developed a charter together to align our vision. We've really developed how we work together as 3 partners, as SFC, BSR, and WEF. We're recruiting a set of leading companies who will sort of agree with the charter and will participate further in an incubation period, the period when work streams are fleshed out, when hard governance arrangements are fleshed out, and you arrive to the end. And during that period, we'll also, in effect, develop a beta version of the tools that the SFBA will formally launch. And then, of course, everyone needs a good deadline to get moving. And so the Smart Freight Week is then not only your networking opportunity the week of May 9, it is therefore also our deadline to finalize all of those arrangements so that we can deliver value to you the week of May 9.
We'll shortly have a panel, but before that I would like to play some short videos from some of the companies we have been working together in this inception period.
SFBA wants to bring around the table players with clear net zero commitments. The SFBA is creating a platform for accelerated alignment of innovative decarbonization pilots, and is creating a great platform for the needed accelerated partnership. An initiative which P&G obviously wants to support and embrace by joining SFBA.
Smart Freight Buyers Alliance will develop the framework and governance to allow shippers and carriers to aggressively decarbonize our supply chains. HP is excited in this new collaboration, and we look forward to the future initiatives to lead HP and the logistics industry to net zero freight transportation.
Whether you're a big corporate or a small company, when you start thinking about logistics sustainability, you will quickly arrive to 3 conclusions. Conclusion number 1, you need a method to map and measure your emissions and to be able to report on them in a structured and transparent manner. For that, we have the GLEC framework. Conclusion number 2, you can't do this alone. You need to collaborate with your logistics service providers, but also with other shippers and your customers. Conclusion number 3, last but not least, you need to innovate, and you need to be able to identify the right technologies to pilot with the right partners. Sustainable Freight Buyers Alliance brings all these 3 things together, and that is why we at Tata Steel are happy to engage with them.
As a global logistics and shipping company, we are already fully committed to zero carbon by 2050 latest. And the Smart Freight Buyers Alliance really supports this agenda. It offers the key sustainability and logistics platform for collaboration and alignment, both between companies for best practice sharing, for example, but also as a group that brings together the key initiatives in the world, such as Clean Cargo, GLEC, and so forth. We urge all sustainability leaders and large companies to join this initiative so we can together drive improvements across the whole logistics industry.
Addressing emissions from freight and logistics is just as important as the work that we're doing on our supply chain, in particular helping farmers around the world. So logistics make up about 8% of our overall carbon footprint, so that's more than 7 million tons of carbon dioxide equivalent every year. That's a big amount, that's a big number, it's a big opportunity. And as we're not a company that makes ships or sources fuel or all those things that need to be addressed to meet this challenge, we need to work with others. I think SFBA is a great example of potential collaboration opportunities, along with the other initiatives that we've heard about as well today. The different initiatives, again, there's so many different coalitions that we're involved in that we do have a challenge in making sure that we're putting our efforts and not in the right places, not spreading ourselves too thin. So, that's a really important objective for Nestlé, and if SFBA can help us go in that direction, that's going to be very welcome.
I think the way we're going to frame this is it all bounds to tracking and emissions. So we are going to really leverage the GLEC framework to monitor basically evolution from the membership and where the solutions are evolving to.
Is actually lays the foundation for real systems change. Well, why is that? If you aggregate enough power from purchasers, then you start to create some virtuous circles. The flywheel of progress starts going. So you can promote more innovation. You know, if you're an MSC or someone else and you see the demand growing, you're a lot more certain about where the market's going, and you're going to want to get there before or with or before your competitors. So innovation is sparked. Secondly, costs will come down more rapidly because there is more certainty in the marketplace, and this is ultimately about creating new kinds of markets, and so that's something else that happens, and tied to that is investment. So we've seen, you know, whether it's really $130 trillion under GFANS or not, that's really going to be unleashed. The numbers are getting larger, and we want those dollars, those euros, those pounds to flow into this kind of systems change. So that's another piece. The last is, with all due respect to public policymakers, they often lag things that are happening in the real economy. And so if we start to see momentum from this kind of initiative, then I think public policymakers are going to be a lot more inclined to create regulatory structures that turn evolving market structures into mandatory requirements. And then you level the playing field and all the good things that flow from that. And that flows from experience and not just from drawing up ideas.
There's three things I wanted to explain. The first one is that when we started Smart Trade Center, we saw a lot of initiatives already there, and we realized we needed to consolidate them, but first on one thing, measurement. Because there were too many initiatives doing many things, and if we could demonstrate it for one thing, which was measurement, then we could next move to action in other areas. So that was done by Alan Lewis, who's sitting here, and Suzanne Green, and other people of the team who were instrumental in looking at clean cargo as a methodology, use EPA Smart Way, the European standards. We had IATA with a standard. We had tools like Eco-Transit, and we combined their methodologies into one global methodology across all modes called the GLEC framework. And this GLEC framework then was used again by all those initiatives that contributed to it, and they tweaked their own methodologies a little bit to make sure they were now in line with others. And then we took that methodologies to the ISO, and there's now going to be 4 more ISO standard launched by the end of the year that covers not only freight but also passenger transport. So we ticked that one off, and that then replaces the European standard. So all of a sudden we have a uniform measurement of emissions across the world. What the SFBA is going to do is it's going to do the same for action initiatives. Because what the risk is that there's so many initiatives happening everywhere, and companies are asked to join. Can you do something on zero emissions trucking? Oh no, now it's about ships. Oh, now it's about efficiency. Oh, it's in China, it's in South Africa, it's in the US. And the freight sector in itself is already so fragmented. Carriers like yourself can't keep up with it. And then they have to deal with those 20, 30, hundreds of customers they work with. You're gonna need to move to zero emission ships, zero emissions airplanes, zero emissions trucks and vans, yeah? And we need to focus on efficiency. So that's avoiding fuller trucks, efficient trucks, etc. But the end game is getting to zero emissions vehicles and vessels, right? And we need efficiency because we need to bring emissions down as much as we can, as fast as we can. We need to both. So I think SFBA is able to not only work with some, in-depth initiatives like Getting to Zero Coalition, focusing on zero emission shipping, but complement that with all the other things around it that bring that efficiency in there as well. Final comment is about policy. I've just been in this job for 9 months. Very exciting. We built this pavilion, so that was a big task to do. But what I've realized is that governments are looking for industry to innovate. And so the moment the SFBA is able to bring a number of things that are really innovations in the sector, then they will start putting the policies in place to put it in place. And we've seen that with trucking, right? Or with electric vehicles. Industry leads. A few industry players lead. There's usually a handful of companies. a policy follows, more businesses follow, then more policy, and so you get that what we call an ambition loop between policy and business. And I'm really privileged to be in this position as Managing Director of Women Business Coalition, because I'm going to fight double hard to make sure that this is what's going to happen for the freight sector.
Because it really does help bring to life the ambitions of the carriers that really want to do the right thing. I mean, our commitment as a company is net zero for 2050. We haven't been as visible or vocal about it as some others, but absolutely it's our commitment. But we can't get there alone. We need our customers to be there on the journey. And those shippers that would say, yes, you must do A, B, C, and D, but then say, well, we don't expect it to cost us any money or require any real commitment on our part. Frankly, I'll call that greenwashing to be kind. It's really not helping to solve the problem. I think bringing like-minded companies together that really are prepared to stand shoulder to shoulder on the journey is exactly what we need. Those are the kind of partners we need to serve, and you're absolutely right that we do need to meet the needs of our customers, and if they're loud and clear about what they want, we'll be ready and we'll provide it.
We're all exploring new forms of collaboration on the net zero journey. So we see this in terms of our work on engaging farmers, on shifting to regenerative agriculture. There's various efforts that have been tried to get companies to collaborate directly together, and I think it's more effective when there's a third party. There's a structure involved which we can all trust, and we can view ourselves as equal players within that structure. And I hope that SFBA can help do that within the logistics sector. So I'd hope that whatever governance arrangement emerges, it has the confidence of all the members and is open and inclusive for new companies to join, sort of wherever they are, but as long as they have that determination to decarbonize and work together with others.
I would like to thank you for the panel for this great input and great suggestions, which we will definitely bring forward, and I indeed very much hope so that we will be here in a year and two as well to present these, how we are meeting these expectations and addressing those challenges we put forward here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.